done during that period. So that's the approach it's given. But then, in a nutshell, what is environmental audit? In a nutshell, during that technically. So that is probably the action required at that moment, at that point in time. So, but if we are to give it summarily, you have on one hand the environmental laws, and then on the other hand, you have compliance issues. Ignorance is not part of the equation. So an environmental audit typically is a type of evaluation intended to identify environmental compliance and management system implementation gaps, along with related corrective actions. So in this way, the performance of the organization when it comes to environmental compliance is easily established. So during environmental audits, most facilities that approach Richflood for environmental audit would be that maybe Richflood executed their impact assessment as well. For instance, if it's a refinery project and environmental audit is to be conducted, there would be an environmental impact assessment that was already conducted before the commencement of the project. And during that process, baseline environmental conditions were documented. There were studies that were done, flora, fauna, biodiversity generally, and depending if it is onshore or offshore, relevant studies will apply during the impact assessment. That's before the project commencement. So this already forms the baseline data that is used during the environmental audit activities. So there would be management plans, for instance, environmental management plan or air quality management plan or biodiversity management plan that may have been developed during the environmental impact assessment. So this forms like a benchmark study that is kept for the purpose of environmental audit. So after 3 years, we come back to check the status of the environment. How is the environment doing? How are the parameters doing that was initially measured? Because if the lead content in water or soil was initially assessed and documented, we now come in after 3 years to conduct environmental audit to check the status of the lead content in water or in soil. So that is how the environmental audit exercise goes. So, but if there was no impact assessment executed, if there was no impact assessment executed before the audit is now required, then you would now have to, at that point in time, do some certain studies, yes, and that may now be the information that will be used for auditing in another 3 years. So yes, the audit activity takes place every 3 years and is different from impact mitigation monitoring because we get inquiries that is it the same with impact mitigation monitoring, IMM, or what's going on. IMM at Richflood is done quarterly. So we come in quarterly and we check the status of things during construction of the project. We want to see what is the compliance level of the construction workers, the staff, and even the management, what has been put in place, what policies are operational, and what mitigation measures are practically being executed on site during the construction phases. But after the construction phase and the operations have started, And we have to continue monitoring. But this time around, we have two approaches to monitoring. We normally will have the retainer with Richflood Laboratory, where we come take effluent samples or water samples if there are water bodies near the project, or even soil samples, depending on the aspects and the impacts that were identified during the impact assessment. So we come in regularly, and if there is an accidental discharge, this doesn't wait for 3 years. We come in immediately, and the lab scientist will come in and take the appropriate samples for testing and get back quickly to the facility to check what corrective measures can be taken. So that don't have to wait for 3 years. But for regulatory compliance, we have the 3 years gap between the audit exercises. So after 3 years, you have to conduct another audit to check, to weigh what the progress in terms of performance for the different aspects of the management plans that have been drafted. And talking about management plans, in the management plans, we have the environmental issue, and we have the recommendations on how to curtail the negative impact, and we have when we need to monitor or take certain actions, and who needs to take the action. So all of this has been laid out in the management plans. It could be biodiversity management plan or even the environmental management plan in general. So it is during the environmental audit exercise that we check to see whether the plan is being implemented or not, and to what extent is the compliance. So that is the difference between impact mitigation monitoring and the retainer you have with Richflood Laboratory, and also the environmental audit. So they go hand in hand, and these different activities actually supports the environmental audit process, because you now have real-time data, for your operation. You can easily bring it out. We also train you to know that this is actions that needs to be done, because sometimes we have the knowledge gap in the facilities. So the trainings will also help. So basically that's what environmental audit is for. And when we are coming for the audit activities also, we have these questions from our clients. They want to know what they should put together or not, what to expect. So normally we try as much as possible that the audit exercise does not tamper with your day-to-day activity, does not tamper with your business, and can be done seamlessly. So basically we have 4 stages for environmental audit. We have the audit planning stage, which is when before it is due for the audit, we are discussing with you, and we are looking at what's going on. Send us document, let's see what records you have. And then we have the second stage, the pre-audit exercise. We have the on-site audit exercise. We have also the post-audit activities that we do. So maybe another time I can take a look at these different audit phases and try to explain each in detail. But I hope this brief talk on environmental audit is useful. You can get in touch with the Richflood office as usual, info@richflood.com, wherever you are, and you need an environmental audit for your facility, you can get in touch with us, and or any environmental service at all. And we will be very glad to send our team members to your facility and take a look. And thank you very much. My name is Comfort. You can also email me directly, comfort@richflood.com. Take care and have a nice evening.